Welcome to today's podcast and one of the series of Medicine and Faith. In today's episode, we're going to talk about gratitude and forgiveness. In this episode, we're going to explain how and what the mechanism would be in terms of the effect in the brain and the effect of gratitude and forgiveness. We will talk about how the Eucharist is part of the forgiveness and of gratitude. Listen until the end of the video because we're going to dive in how gratitude and forgiveness affects our health. This is Dr. Inad from Cadenza Medical Clinic, Ave Maria, Florida. So let's begin. Even just the little details of the thank you has an impact on your brain, and it's very healthy for your mind and eventually for your soul. The act of forgiveness does the same thing. Functional MRI studies have shown that there are centers of the brain that are affected when you practice simple acts of gratitude and forgiveness. For example, the prefrontal cortex increases activity when you do forgiveness and gratitude regularly. The prefrontal cortex is located at the front of the brain, and this area helps regulate emotions, make decisions, and evaluate rewards. The medial prefrontal cortex is especially active during gratitude, positive reflection, and empathy. It helps interpret experience as assign value to it, so that when you're thanking somebody, it identifies it as a good action. When you're forgiving, it does the same thing. Another center of the brain is called the ventral striatum and the nucleus accumbens. This is central part of the brain's reward circuit. It has a lot of dopamine in it, such that when it is activated by pleasurable stimuli like food, music, the same thing is happening when you do gratitude and forgiveness. It's rich in dopamine, the neurotransmitter that gives us that sense of motivation, reward, and joy. Hippocampus is a center of joy and memory. It interacts with emotional centers to store positive memories. So the more you thank somebody and the more you forgive somebody, it gives you a good positive memory deposited in the memory bank of the hippocampus, such that what predominates in your brain is this positive attitude, and you have no way of thinking about rumination and negative thoughts. So it is easier for you to recall blessings and joyful experiences in the future because the hippocampus is activated. Gratitude and reflection actually increase the density of the gray matter in this area, which is very important information as substantiated by the functional MRI studies. Another center is the anterior cingulate cortex, which plays emotional regulation, attention, and empathy. So the more you thank somebody, the more you forgive, the more you become empathic to people. It helps shift focus away from pain or fear and toward more constructive and positive states. On the other hand, the amygdala is a center for anxiety, anger, and threat. There is lesser activity of the amygdala when you practice gratitude and forgiveness. So it is a win-win situation. The more you say thank you, the more you forgive, life will be dominated by positive feelings and positive thoughts. And you continue to be an edifying example of people around you. And you will be a contagious feeling and contagious action when you do thank and forgive regularly. So what activity can do or increase the activity of these brain centers like the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, the anterior cingulate, and the ventral striatum or the nucleus accumbens? Meditation, either Eastern or Western meditation or Christian meditation. Even the Eastern meditation has been demonstrated in studies that meditators, whether they're doing it in the Eastern way, they become more empathic, more compassionate. For a Catholic meditation, it is best for us to meditate on the unconditional love of Jesus through his passion, because it's a way of thanksgiving for us on why Jesus unconditionally loved us even before he was born, because it is what he planned for. According to reflections of a saint, after the fall of Adam and Eve, God, the Creator, was so disturbed. He was so sad. So he had to have a conversation with Jesus before he was born. And the conversation might have said this way: Son, you would have to go live with the humanity, live with them, and save the humanity. Because the humanity that I had created has fallen into sin, and they need to be saved. So Jesus obeyed with unconditional obedience to his Father. And with that, they recruited a woman conceived without original sin, the Virgin Mary. No sin, since he was conceived by Saint Anne and Saint Joachim. She was conceived without sin, the Immaculate Conception. She was conceived without original sin, thus she was called the Immaculate Conception. So Jesus had to enter into the womb of a sinless woman. This was part of the plan, the unconditional love of Jesus. When you forgive, just like what God had done, to forgive, erase the sins of humanity, redeemed by the passion, redeemed by the blood of Jesus. This is what we need to think about. We don't need to be crucified. It's good enough that we do thank and forgive people around us. Stay with the family, stay with people around you. Start forgiving and thanking your family and your friends. What is the effect of doing these exercises of forgiving and gratitude? Because of the effect that it decreases your cortisol level, the cortisol level is decreased, thus decreasing the sugar, which would stimulate the sympathetic tone, which increases your blood pressure. Thus, when you meditate and when you do actions of forgiveness and gratitude, your blood pressure goes down. You're able to sleep better. Your immune function is also improved because chronic stress or chronic cortisol level increase will decrease the function of the lymphocytes, which is responsible for combating common infection, even COVID, and also chronically, you are also decreasing your chance of having cancer. And cardiovascular effects, the cardiovascular events also diminished when you do these kind of positive actions as a result of the switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic tone. What is the Catholic teaching teaches us about gratitude and forgiveness? Well, thanksgiving, or the Eucharist is in Greek, thanksgiving. The Mass is the ultimate act of giving thanks to Jesus. Who are the great saints who have exemplified and manifested gratitude? The simple soul of Saint Teresa of Lisieux showed gratitude for even small and hidden blessings. Even to say thank you for the smile, or even thank you for the difficulties that she had to endure. Saint Francis of Assisi manifested giving thanks in suffering, and he saw everything as a gift. Simple things like, thank you, my friend, for spending time with me playing tennis, or spending time with me walking and praying the rosary or whatnot. In a Catholic practice, we have this morning offering. We say thank you for a good night's sleep, for the things that would come. Grace before meals is another way of doing it. Examination of conscience is at the end of the day to say thank you, to ask forgiveness, and to ask more blessing. The great saints, Saint Josemaria Escrivá and Don Alvaro, even Saint Ignatius of Loyola, would divide their examination of conscience. At first, thanksgiving, asking pardon, and asking grace. But before you ask for material grace, ask first to increase your love for Jesus. That is the most important thing of asking the grace. What is the Catholic teaching of forgiveness? Jesus commanded us. He was asked, how many times do we forgive somebody? You forgive 77 times. In Our Father, we pray, as we forgive those who trespass against us. So what is the meaning of the 77 times 7? Well, 7 is a perfect number in Jewish tradition. So 77 times 7 is like infinity, forever, countless. You have to forgive every day. The Catholic The Catholic Church is gifted with sacraments, the sacrament of reconciliation. Saint Jose Maria Escrivá would say, go to confession every week because it cleanses your soul. Jesus in Insigne Jesu advised the monk to tell the priest to go to confession every week for the sake of the soul and for the sake of the health. So this makes sense because when you're doing these actions of asking forgiveness and forgiving other people, you're increasing, lighting up the centers of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, anterior cingulate gyrus, the ventral striatum, increases activity, which are source or the command center of positive effects and emotions. The amygdala, the baby, which is a center for anxiety and depression, is diminished over time when you meditate, especially the unconditional love of Jesus. The sacrament of reconciliation is also a healing sacrament that models both receiving and giving mercy. Catholics are called to intimate God's mercy, not just receive it. The great saints who manifested or exemplified great acts of forgiveness, for example, Saint Maria Goretti, she forgave her murderer before she died. And in fact, a beautiful story, the murderer was invited during the canonization of Saint Maria Goretti. Saint John Paul II, October 13, assassinated. He went to the jail and forgave his assassin. We ought to do these things because it's healthy for our body and soul. We ought to meditate the unconditional love of Jesus because this is the ultimate example of forgiveness. He forgave the human race after Adam and Eve fall into sin. He was willing to be the victim, the victim for the souls of the humanity. Forgiveness opens the heart to gratitude. So when you realize how deeply God has forgiven you, it becomes harder to hold someone else in your debt. Humility is a grace. So when you do these acts of gratitude and forgiveness, you are in the grace of God. When you have lack of forgiveness, it bails resentment, which is a negative feeling. It is prideful. And when you're prideful, you are in the side of the devil. So the soul for not giving sustains yourself in the position of pride. This lack of forgiveness is an involuntary act of, how could that person do that to me? As if like you are not deserving the bad action. When in fact, Jesus has exemplified that when he was beaten up, spat upon, he remained silent because he felt like as a human. So when we say, I don't deserve this, it is wrong to presume that because a humble soul knows we don't deserve anything good. We really don't. Because anything good that is given to us for free is given to us from the mercy of God. We have to ask for that mercy. Saint John Paul and Saint Maria Goretti most likely were infused with that grace from God to be able to forgive. But we can do this. We can ask God for the grace to be able to forgive and to be able to be consistently giving thanksgiving, starting with little things from your friend, thanking your friend for the time with you, thanking your family around you. Every grudge is a position of pride. It is sin because it belongs to the devil. The devil is prideful. According to the exorcists, resentment is an open door for spiritual contamination. So we have to be careful about this. Standing in the position of Satan is pride and lack of charity. To be able to not forgive and not to be able to thank somebody is lack of charity. The best charity there is to love the person who harmed you. It's a heroic act of charity. Forgiveness is not just letting go. It is an action or a commitment that you still be able to love that somebody who harmed you. So the natural process of forgiveness goes like this. Spiritual but natural is to change the imagination. That person intrudes your thoughts. Do not run away from that. Embrace it. Because by embracing it, you hand it over and entrust this and ask God's mercy to be able to erase this imagination and simply say, Lord, I want to forgive this person. Do the action. Decide that you're going to forgive. And little by little, these images will disappear. Ask forgiveness. Thank God for the grace that you are able to forgive and forgive and say thank you to Him for forgiving, allowing you to forgive this person. The harder part is the brain because it's imagination. So not to think about it is physical and requires regular action, regular meditation. So regular meditation of His unconditional love, the unconditional love of Jesus through His passion is a remedy for not being able to forgive and not being able to thank somebody. Go to Jesus, entrust it to Him. You cannot do it alone. Do not fight. Every time the memory comes, imagine yourself in the agony of the garden. There are neurons actually called mirror neurons that is also increased when you do this imagination of something that you like to be united with. Uniting yourself with the sacrifice and the agony of Jesus in the garden will increase those neurons and allows you to be realistically in the scene of Jesus in Gethsemane, for example. There are a lot of scenes in the passion of Christ that we ought to imagine and we ought to meditate every day because it's good for our mind, our body, and our soul. Say, Jesus, I decided to forgive. I decided to love. May your blood wash away this resentment that I always harbor. Turn your temptation into a prayer because this temptation is a powerful prayer if you entrust this to God. The feeling of resentment will become weaker and weaker over time. You have to have the act of the will of forgiving, flipping the memory into prayer, flipping the memory of resentment into prayer by entrusting it to God and be with Him all the time. Imagine yourself in the passion. He forgave everybody, and we ought to be perfectly in unity with Jesus. The act of humility, in contrast to pride, which is a state of Satan, is by being humble that you are in the side of Christ every moment of His passion. If you want to know Christ, you have to meditate on His passion regularly. Saint Teresa of Avila would advise us, or she would say to us, that the only thing that she meditates through her life was the passion of Christ. Remember, emotions are related to imagination. This vivid imagination of resentment is in the mind and it's harmful to you. So you need to get out of that loop and you need to erase those imagination with the scenes of the unconditional love of Jesus and His passion. Ask God to forgive, an action and a decision to do so. What are the practical things that we may be able to do to practice this every day? Well, number one, keep a gratitude of journal, which means thank God at least 3 times daily for the little things. When you kneel down for morning prayer, thank Him for the good sleep, for the house, for the shelter, for the peace of your mind. Thank God for the food that you'll be taking. Speak your thanks in prayer, even for your struggles and the struggles you're going to be anticipating for the day. Second would be to ask God, whom do I need to forgive today? Don't go beyond the walls of your house. They are there. Examine your conscience, as the great saints had exemplified. Do a thanksgiving, thanking for everything you've received. Ask for pardon and ask for graces, especially the grace to love Him more and more. Visit the sacrament of reconciliation because it's a great sacrament. It is the ultimate sacrament that is given to us, that we are forgiven and we are able to forgive. Pray for those who have hurt you. You say, Lord, bless them, even if I'm not ready to talk to them yet. There is a conviction that you want to forgive them. Gratitude and forgiveness aren't just acts, they are postures of the heart that transform our lives. This week, I challenge you, do those simple things. Say thank you to simple things. Like say thank you, my friend, for spending time with me playing tennis. Thank your wife for the food, for the children, for the smile. Ask forgiveness for simple things. So write down these things, 3 things every night before you go to bed, and make a resolution the following day. This will help rewire your brain, and those resentments will just disappear. It will melt down and become positive thoughts because the centers of the brain are activated and the amygdala is diminished in activity. Your immune function will improve because without stress, lymphocytes the quality and production of lymphocytes is increased. So there'll be more antibodies that can combat those viruses that will infect you with the common infections like common colds or COVID even, and even cancer. Pray for someone you need to forgive. God is not asking you to do this alone because you really cannot do it alone. His grace will meet you where you are. So in this episode, if this touched you, share it with a friend, drop a comment, like, because a healing starts with thanksgiving. Peace starts with mercy, and both start with you. This is Dr. Raúl from Cadenza Medical Clinic, Ave Maria, Florida.